Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. How are you all doing? Now, maybe it's because I'm a man of a certain age, but one thing I love about recording this daily tech podcast is that a conversation can be recorded and then beamed all over the world, and we can share ideas and insights on that conversation. And I also get to receive messages like this from Mohammed Alamoudi. He said, I hope this email finds you well, Neil. I'm writing this email from Saudi Arabia to reflect my appreciation for an excellent podcast show. In fact, all the words of appreciation in the universe will never reflect my gratitude. And he goes on to say that he's a senior consultant geologist, but has a passionate interest in both data and technology development. And he's very kindly shared links to this podcast with a number of his friends and colleagues, all within his area of contact. He says, your podcast is fantastic. Please keep continuing. And if I have the right to ask for anything else, it would be some more details about the technologies that are developed. Mohammed, thank you so much, my friend, for your message. As a listener, I know people seldom feel compelled to email or write to a radio presenter or podcast host, as it's passive entertainment. So I genuinely thank you for sending that in. And also, I'm going to take your comments on board and explore how we can start including some extra details about the technologies being developed. Speaking of which, I've got a fantastic guest today waiting for us in Austin, Texas, and a company called Pensa Systems, which is an Austin-based startup that's about to announce a solution to address one of the biggest and costliest problems in retail, which is a lack of consistent on-shelf inventory visibility. Probably something that many people listening don't automatically think of, but this problem is costing retailers and CPG brands $1 trillion per year. So Pensa's system is a breakthrough in that it uses artificial intelligence, autonomous drones and computer vision to see and understand and analyse exactly what is on store shelves. And the payoff? Brands and retailers will then be able to minimise those stockouts and optimise product planning and boost their revenues. Now, early trials with major consumer packaged goods and retailers have shown more than 98% in accuracy. So we're not just talking about big technology here. We're talking high accuracy and at a lower cost than other approaches. And this company has been operating in stealth, but as always, my spidey sensors pick something up. So I managed to track them down and get them onto the show today. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Austin, Texas, so we can speak with Richard Schwartz, the CEO of Pensa Systems. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Richard, and congratulations on launching your technology last week at the National Retail Federation Conference. I mean, what exactly did you launch?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Neil. We have been in stealth mode for a while. We've had a website, but hasn't really said what we were doing. And last week at NRF, together with Intel, our partner, we actually showed our first public demonstration of what we're up to. We've been quietly working on store pilots and so forth with retailers and brands, but nothing publicly. So this was a real first public debut for the company.
Wow. Did you? How did it go down? I would imagine that you turned quite a few heads with what you announced.
That's exactly right. You can imagine the Intel booth is one of the largest booths of the show. It's all glass, specifically designed to be really high. And what we were doing, among other things, was flying an autonomous drone, right? So yes, it did attract a lot of attention. I think it was one of the most highly trafficked booths of the show. So in that respect, yes.
Fantastic. So like you say, you were in stealth and you made this big announcement. Can you just tell me a little bit more about exactly what was announced over there?
First of all, maybe taking a step back and tell you what the problem is that we solve, and then what did we announce as a solution for it, and that sort of led to the interest, right? So what we're all about is dealing with the problem of in retail supply chain of how do you know what's on the shelf to sell? How do you know what's on the shelf to sell? And how do you reduce stockouts so that when people want to buy it, it's actually there? And it turns out that's a really big problem, both for the retailers as well as the brands. I mean, something like, I don't know, 1 out of every 8 products are literally not on the shelf and available for sale, which you can imagine is a problem all the way around.
Yeah.
So what we announced and what we showed live for the first time at NRF is a system to solve that, to automate that. The front end of that, so there are 2 pieces. The front end of that is a small autonomous drone. Doesn't do most of the work, but has a small camera and is able to come down and sort of peer at the products on shelves in an aisle. And then back end, not on the drone, is artificial intelligence to kind of process that and recognize the products on the shelf down to the individual item level, and also automatically how the shelves are organized. And we actually did live demonstrations of that, and we talked about the store pilots and what we're doing with retailers and brands and that sort of thing. And that was live for the first time.
So for anyone outside of the retail space, I imagine there's going to be a lot of people in that room that were blown away when you made the announcement, but just for everyone listening, how is it different from how brands and retailers currently manage their in-store inventory?
Yeah, good question. So this issue of what's actually on the shelf is a giant black hole. It's about $1 trillion black hole for a huge industry of retail goods, right? And a lot of the supply chain, what happens in warehouses and distribution centers and so forth, all of that is pretty well automated. And, you go into a retail store and there's the automatic point of sale for checkout, right? And there's ERP for figuring out what's coming in the back. But very largely, the process for the retailers and the brands to know what's on the shelf is people walking around. It's eyeballs, literally people walking around to check the shelves. And the brands, the large consumer packaged goods brands, people like that, they send in spotters, literally whole armies of people that go in and sort of look at the shelves themselves and try to see what's going on. So all of that is really a heavily manual, heavily tedious process. So what we've done is we've basically brought a new type of technology to do a new type of automation to kind of smarten all that up, both for the retailer and the brand, but also, frankly, to help consumers, so when they go into the store, what they want is actually on the shelf. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And listening to you there, my understanding is that you've got 3 critical components to this system. So you've got the autonomous drones, computer vision, and artificial intelligence. But can you just help join those together and explain why each one of those is important?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're using computer vision. We're using computer, first of all, video capture, and secondly, artificial intelligence to understand what's being seen. And we train the computer to essentially stare at the shelves and draw conclusions just the way people do. So if you walk around a retail aisle and you kind of stare at what's where, right? And you've looked several times so you get a sense of what should be where. And then you can kind of see what's running low. And if you see something running low and you kind of know, gee, that's probably going to run out by the end of the weekend or, by next Friday or something like that, we've trained the artificial intelligence to basically draw those same kinds of conclusions from the computer vision input. And the autonomous drone is basically the roving pair of eyes. It's not doing most of the work, but has the ability to kind of come down and peer at the shelves on some kind of regular basis and then feed the AI to do it. So it's that combination, just as you said, the drones, the computer vision, and the artificial intelligence to sort of process that. And it's that triple or the three-legged stool that we do.
So for any brands and big retailers, what's the ultimate goal? Is it going to help them reduce costs or grow revenue? Or indeed, is it both?
Yeah, so it's not really about reducing cost. It's about achieving the revenue and customer satisfaction, right? So literally, the brands and the retailers spend a lot of money and a lot of time trying to figure out, how much of what product to put on the shelf and how to organize it, right? And the problem is those kind of very abstract plans are not actually what happens on the shelf. What happens on the shelf is dramatically more chaotic than that. And on the retail level, the store clerks end up having to take time away from the customer in order to make sure that something literally stays on the shelf and then it's put in the right place. So what we're doing is both revenue achievement, right? But also customer sat. I mean, one of the worst things is when somebody goes into the store to get something specific, right? Yeah. They go into the store, they know where it's supposed to be, and it ain't there. And that problem is only getting worse in today's world. So it's both customer sat as well as revenue assurance, and big numbers with a real business case. We don't have to explain to either the retailer or the brand what they're losing or what the cost of that is.
And speaking of big numbers, you also recently announced $5 million in additional funding. I mean, are you able to talk about who your investors are and why you think they're investing?
Yeah, sure. So that's right. We announced follow-on funding for Pensa as well. We announced that we had brought on 2 additional venture capital investors. One of them is Signia Ventures, and the other is Commerce Ventures, both Bay Area venture capital firms. And they joined a set of investors we had already, which included some Austin investors and ATX Seed, included a strategic investor. And this one's kind of interesting. One of our customers that we've been working with for a while, AB InBev, Anheuser-Busch InBev, the large beverage beer manufacturer, they got really interested. They have the problem in spades, like everybody else, and they got really interested. And they had joined previously and then upped again as an investor. And then we also, again, kind of interesting. You've probably heard of Kiva Systems, what became Amazon Robotics, the little orange robots that work in the fulfillment center now within Amazon. So Mick Mounts, the founder of Kiva, is an investor in Pensa. And actually the first investor in Kiva is also an investor in Pensa. So we've got a collection of investors, including new bench strength, plus new money to add on to what we had before.
And I'm glad you mentioned AB and Vev there, because they've been on the show recently too, and they're so much more than a drinks manufacturer, aren't they? Because they're really into startups and actually making a difference in the world through technology.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they're a really interesting company because they're a strong believer in data and analytics. Yeah. Not only to know about the customer, but also know about tuning the supply chain and tuning the business and dealing with far-flung distribution of their products. They're a really good partner and a really good investor.
So I love how you're leveraging new technologies to make a real difference and create those game-changer moments for businesses. But let's just go back in time for a moment. I mean, I understand that Pensa was started back in 2016. I've got to ask, what was the inspiration or the spark for the business? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, good question. So a couple things came together, Neil. One is that a number of companies that I've that I've done in the past have all been in the area of one form of artificial intelligence or another. And what was quite intriguing was that the use of computer vision and image understanding, essentially being able to draw conclusions and to do automation of things above the menial task level. A lot of the robotics, a lot of the automation has been sort of menial activities over and over again, right? Sweeping the floor, sucking the vacuum, moving something from A to B, A to B, A to B. And what I saw was an opportunity. And we, together with my co-founders, we saw two things that could come together. One, the ability to automate perception and cognition, essentially to go after more thoughtful or tasks that involve more thinking, and to combine that with the fact that there was an upheaval in retail supply chain, a need to really automate more parts of the supply chain, in particular around retail products and how they reach the market. So we put those things together, and that's what led to Pensa.
Now, you did hint there that you are a serial entrepreneur. I mean, what were the previous companies that you ran, just for people tuning in?
Yeah, I'm kind of a serial offender, right? Way back when I got a PhD in computer science from UCLA, and I worked in research actually for about 5 years at Stanford Research Institute. And then my first company was a database company, the Paradox database, merged in the very early days with Borland. And then I was the CTO of Borland in the growth years. And then I did another one in the multi-channel CRM space. Then after that, in the mobile application space, and then in the cellular connected IoT space. And each one of those was acquired by a larger company where I played a role for a while, and then repeat story. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
Fantastic. So we will have people listening and startup founders listening from all shapes and sizes at various stages of their startup journey, and probably looking to you to learn from your journey. So, I mean, what was your biggest successes and your biggest failures, along with any lessons you learned along the way?
Well, there are a lot of lessons, and nothing ever works out exactly the way you expect it to, ever. Neither in the biggest successes or the things that didn't go the way you expect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly each one of the companies I've done had a successful exit, but some were sort of larger than others. Along the way, I think the biggest lesson was that you need to be prepared really early on, and probably multiple times, to sort of see whether your assumptions were correct or not, and to alter to take care of it. So, for example, my first company, Paradox, was sort of the right thing at the right time. We had one of the first database products for business professionals. It was, I don't know, 1,000 times faster because of AI in it than its competition. It was sort of the golden age for personal computer software. The second company, which also had a successful exit, this was in the multi-channel CRM space, sort of outbound communication, at a time when everyone was expecting the website itself to sort of draw every customer all the time to keep coming back continuously. And we envisioned a need to do sort of outbound CRM, send out communication via email, via messaging, and that sort of thing. And it turned out to be right, but way too early. And we had designed essentially a packaged, ready-to-use out-of-the-box product to do it at a time when it was more of a developer market and a developer requirement. So in order to make that successful, we had to lop off the top part of the product so that developers could essentially build it into applications. And I would say every single time It's something where you can't just sort of coast and assume that whatever you thought was going to happen is going to happen. If you don't challenge the assumptions, you can assume it's not going to go the right way. So that's maybe the biggest lesson.
Excellent. And listening to your story, it seems that you're not just a serial entrepreneur, that you're also a bit of an inventor at heart. So I've got to ask, I mean, you've done so many different projects. What motivates you in your work and what makes you want to get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, good question. I said serial offender. I really can't stop, and I really love doing it. I like Neil. I like making a difference.
Yeah.
Number one, and I like tackling challenging problems in markets that are ready for some kind of change. Right. So, something where a different kind of solution, maybe a different twist, something radically different in some hopefully fundamental way can be brought to market. And then I love seeing, I love the test. I love seeing that it really does make a difference. And I love working with customers on it. And that's very, very addictive. You see that something matters. You see the response from that. And I love doing that. Keeps me up.
Yeah. So what's next for Pensa Systems? What's your grand vision and what can we expect to see from Pensa over the next few years?
Yeah. So this was the first public demonstration. We're working quietly with a set of brands and retailers. Also at the NRF show, I would say that pretty much, most of the major brands and most of the major retailers in one way or another sort of stop by to talk. What you'll start to see from us are a series of increasingly visible deployments, both on the retailer led side as well as the brand led side. And you'll start to see more results and case studies appear from that. Because we're a new type of solution, we'll of course very carefully make sure with the first deployments that we package it up right, we create success for our customers and referenceable case studies in each case. And then you'll start to see some amount of broader deployments. We're already from the early store pilots in multiple countries, and you can expect to see some more deployments that cross different country boundaries as well.
So for anyone listening, what's the best way for them to follow what you're doing, keep abreast of your progress, and equally contact you if they're interested in finding out more information through your, website, social channels, contact info, etc.?
Yeah, so all of the above. Probably the easiest center point for that is the website itself, www.pensasystems.com. www.pensasystems.com. From there, of course, yes, we also have a presence on Twitter. We've got a presence on LinkedIn. The emails are there. I'd love to hear from anyone that would like to contact us in any of those ways.
Fantastic. Well, a huge thank you for coming on today. I'm incredibly excited about what you're doing here. And I appreciate you're probably locked down to a lot of NDAs. So in the future, I'm looking forward to learning more about the partnerships and how they're solving real problems for these guys too, some of the biggest brands in the world. So let's stay in touch. I'd love to get you on in a few months and learn more about your story and how things are progressing. But more than anything, just a big thank you for sharing your recent announcement with me today.
Thank you, Neil. Good to talk to you. Let's chat again.
I love how Pensa Systems is using breakthrough technology, including artificial intelligence, autonomous drones, and computer vision to see and understand exactly what's on those shelves. And how it's also able to provide crucial data to minimise stockouts, optimise product planning, and ultimately boost revenues and profitability. But this isn't just pie in the sky and tech buzzwords. Adoption is key to the success of any technology and how it solves real-world problems. And again, by Pensa partnering with many top retailers and CPG brands, they really are looking to address these issues globally and tackle that $1 trillion blind spot at a critical time for the retail industry. Essentially, it's solving real problems for top companies. I would urge anyone listening to put Pensa Systems on your radar too, because they've just come out of stealth. They're working with many, many top brands, and it's definitely one to watch for the future. Just remember where you heard about them first. But as regular listeners know, this show is not about my opinions or even the guests. It's about your thoughts, your insights, your expertise, or anything else at all, as we tear down that fourth wall and I ask you to email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter @NeilCHughes, and you can also get me on Instagram @NeilCHughes. If you do follow me on any of these platforms, please send me a DM or a quick message as well, so I know that you're an actual listener, not just one of those robot followers. And also, remember, if you're attending the GPEC event in Phoenix and the Phoenix Open next week in Arizona, again, hit me up with a DM and I'll meet you for a cold beer or a hot coffee, depending on your preference. The choice is yours. I'm a flexible guy. But we've reached the end of this episode. A big thank you to Mohammed for emailing me all the way from Saudi Arabia, where he listens to this podcast. And also a big thank you to Richard, of course. But last, and by no means least, an even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to this Daily Tech podcast. So I'll return tomorrow with another guest from another industry and how they're leveraging technology. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.